this is helpful, but it's only basing itself off of the internet, which I know at the end of the day isn't real communication styles that aren't the same as having a person in front of you or having actual relationships that are nuanced.
What they found was the completion rates are terrible because there's not a companion, if you will.
You're listening to Mentor Moments, where we talk about all things counseling, technology, education, and career development. I am Braden Wooters, and I'm joined by my co-host, Dr. Michael Keener. Grab a seat, and let's get started.
All right, let's do this. Right? Welcome to another episode of Mentor Moments with your two cool hosts, Braden and Mike.
Welcome back, folks. My name is Braden Wooters. As Dr. Keener had already introduced me, I guess no intros necessary. How are you? How are things?
I'm great. I don't know if I mentioned this before, but well, maybe I shouldn't say this because if my nephews are listen to Mentor Moments, what they do, I'm outing something. So my brother asked me to make something for his two nephews. So just in case they are listening, I won't say any more. But I'm a woodworker, and I just love getting into my woodworking brain, and just to get it. And it's awesome when things work out. And I must admit, this is some good stuff. I did a good job. I don't want to be too egocentric, but this is, and I always say I have all my fingers and there's no cut, so I must be good at woodworking, right? Maybe I'm not good enough because maybe those old timers with missing a finger, they're tough.
That's true. You almost have to. It's almost a requirement. You have to lose a couple fingers to be.
Right.
Are you not gonna like? Is it so? You're not gonna.
Well, I don't. I don't want to. These are Christmas gifts, so I don't.
Oh, so this we're gonna have to wait until.
Wait. Yeah. Well, I mean, my brother. We're of a certain age where we were when D&D Dungeons Dragons first came out. We were of that age, right? And my nephews are adults. They're both graduated from college, and they are now enjoying D&D with my brother and his friends and whatnot. So there's something Dungeons and Dragons related. I'm going to leave it at that. Again, don't want to spoil it. So
Oh, that's terrific. I love how Dungeons and Dragons has really. I mean, I don't know if it ever went away, but I know that with Stranger Things and all that, it really kind of had a resurgence.
yeah.
I don't know if you noticed that too, but
Yeah, well, I think just in all the Comic Cons and there's Gen Con, and I have a friend that used to go to Gen Con. I don't know what the Gen stands for, but I knew that was a gaming convention versus Comic Con and whatnot. So
and I know that I used to work with a therapist whose whole thing, like she really felt very strongly about like D&D group therapy, about combining the two, which I had never been able to sit in on and watch or anything like that, but I'd always hear cool stories about it, and I'm like, wow, that's so, I don't know, such a cool experience. So
yeah, well, you can see where like group like we're in this other world, right? And you want to sort of practice out these skills in a safe environment. Maybe you can do that within the world of Dungeons and Dragons, perhaps, or some cosplay, right? I don't
yeah.
know if there was costumes involved at all, but
I always just give I mean, my friends have always not always. My friends have tried a couple times to do a D&D, and it just never ends up panning out either because from what I've heard and what I've seen, it's quite a commitment. Like you're like coming back
right. Well, you
people
got
are going for
multiple quests. You mean
yeah.
right? It was all fun when we played when I was younger. So
I'm back from
yeah.
vacation.
What about you?
Yep.
What's new with you?
I guess I don't know if I'd call it vacation. Yeah, I just got back from Punta Cana, Dominican Republic. I was gone for close to a week, for a wedding that I attended. It's been a long time since I've been out of the country. I mean, 5 or 6 years. Um, Definitely, and this was at a resort too. Secrets Royal Beach is what it was called. First time ever at a resort.
Ooh.
Was definitely out of my element. I am not used to resorts. I am not used to all inclusive anything. So it was just a very different experience, I'd say. Um, I don't know. I could talk for hours about just how different the experience was, but I was with my friends and that was nice, and got to relax. So yeah,
Cool. I'm glad you had that opportunity.
me too. And I didn't get burnt. I know the last time we talked, I was so scared about getting burnt. I was like, like I don't know. Like if you're watching viewers, if you're watching the video portion, maybe you've seen my face. I don't know, but like I feel like I'm a very fairly white individual, both externally and internally. I feel like I act very white. Uh, that was my biggest fear, was that I was gonna get like absolutely roasted and toasted, but I think it turned out more or less okay. So, but now I'm back, and ready to roll on another episode. We got a lot to talk about. We've got
Yeah,
lots to talk
let's jump right in, huh?
about. Moment of the week. Any moment of the week for you? I know that you already mentioned you've been hard at work in the wood shop. Any big moments for you that have been, super impactful, or anything like that? If not, that's okay.
Well, it not necessarily, but I'll leave this for the main content. The content we are going to be talking a little bit about OpenAI or ChatGPT's, learning study coach study tool. I'm blanking right now on what they call it, and I did play with it a little bit, so I know that's always fun to me to kind of explore that. And I kind of and not kind of I compared it to Gemini and their learning coach, and I asked the same thing just to kind of see what it would do. So I'll let I'll my review will be upcoming, so I'll stop right there. Little
I'm
tease.
excited.
Keep
I'm
listening.
excited. My moment of the week. I am slowly but surely beginning to see clients now. Over at Lindenwood. It's the summertime, so we're waiting for a lot of our athletes to trickle in. But one thing that's been really impactful for me now that I'm back to seeing clients is, it's just so refreshing to see clients that wanna be there. Uh, Stages of change is something that you don't really think about until you're with clients that don't wanna be in therapy. And that was what a lot of my experience was, in my previous role, working with primarily teenagers or adolescents, and that was, parents kinda dragging them to therapy, maybe against their will, and so sometimes there's those pulling teeth instances, and I'm sure that I'll probably still have a little bit of those experiences at Lindenwood working with college students. That said, it is so refreshing to have individuals come in and sit down on my couch and like be very like into wanting to work on things. It's just so invigorating. That's been my moment. I experienced it today. I had a session at 11, and I was like, gosh, this is so. I keep saying refreshing, but that's just the word I keep coming back to. That
Well,
it's very refreshing.
if you're not watching us, you should be, but if you are, you can't see, again, the positive emotions that Brayton does have on his face. So, I'm
Well, and plus,
is refreshing.
it is. Well, plus they're athletes, so they come with a level of willingness already and a level of I don't want to sound cheesy, but like a level of grit that they already have. That I'm like, oh wow, like you're used to putting in work. Let's let's do something here. So
Let's get in, yeah.
it's great. Uh all right. Let's get into our headlines today. Let's get into our big stuff. I've got my notes here. I'll just roll through the first headline. We'll chat about it. We'll keep rolling through because just gosh, so much has happened just within the last day or two. Um, so at the time of this recording, yesterday, Illinois just became the first state to regulate the use of AI in mental health care. The new law bans AI from acting as a standalone therapist and sets guardrails for how mental health professionals can use AI to support mental health care. I'm going to pause there because that's huge. Before I go into my thoughts, Dr. Keener, what are your thoughts?
I guess, yeah, you sent this to me, 2 hours ago, so I sort of read the little, like, news clip. I guess my first thing that without reading I guess reading the headline, I'm thinking, are they taking out the use of AI if a therapist, counselor is using it, whether to support them? like in the session, sort of listening in, or post session to help with notes? Are they eliminating that because it was like the door's already like the Pandora's box or the door's already open to that, right? But then reading that again, it sounds like again, it's banning, and again, you can help me, correct me, a standalone, just using the agent alone as a therapist, counselor, professional, which I think is awesome, right? Um, I've noticed recently I'm getting more disclaimers sometimes when I type something in that
Mm,
something about it's triggering an algorithm, and it's and again, I don't think I was using it for counseling, but it made some kind of disclaimer like medical advice is not, don't use this for medical advice or something like that. So, yeah, I don't know. I think it's a good thing, right? I mean, we need to make sure right now, we still need to make sure somebody's monitoring what AI is doing, right, from a professional perspective.
yeah. Uh, so many thoughts and feelings. Okay. So first of all, just shocked that Illinois is the first one out of all of us. Like out of all the states, I just was not expecting Illinois to be the one to go, okay, we're gonna be the first to do some lawmaking around AI. I was just like, oh, okay, Illinois. So shocked on that. Uh my first question that I originally had was kind of the same to yours, which is like to what extent, and from what I've read, it seemed like the extent was pretty much um you are allowed to use AI in Illinois, like, for administrative tasks, like note taking, but anything that goes into clinical decision making, they are prohibiting. I didn't ask, searched a little bit into, like, how does this get enforced? Like, what does that look like? Like, illegal in what way? And essentially, it's fining. Like, you would be fined, like, upwards of, like, $10,000, if you were caught, utilizing these things. My biggest gripe with it, and if I was to be pessimistic about it, is just I feel like they're tackling the wrong people. I appreciate it to the extent because all that this law really does, from what I've gathered, and I could be wrong about this, is that they're just enforcing it on mental health professionals. And most of the mental health professionals that I've met and talked to, and the greater sphere of ethics tells me that most mental health professionals aren't using AI for decision making. Or, I don't want to do this session. How about you talk to ChatGPT instead of me? That's not really happening. And that's all what I'm noticing is that this law really is tackling is, hey, if you're a mental health professional, you can't use AI in these cases. Okay, they already weren't doing that. I mean, knock on wood, they probably weren't doing that. It has no, uh, it is very little law making policy on the AI makers unless they're like actively promoting or advertising their AI as, hey, this is a therapist. You can use this as a therapist, which I feel like most AI producers or makers or developers, they're not really doing that. They're not really saying, hey, you can use this as a therapist. So I mean, maybe they could hit 1 or 2, developers that are promoting their AI as, "Hey, this is mental health care. You can use this as mental health care." Like, I don't see that being a very popular thing. And then the last thing is that most people that are using AI as mental health care, they're not doing it through a therapist. They're just doing it themselves. So, you notice in this law that, like, you can't get fined. Like, I can't get fined myself if let's say that Joe Schmo on the street decides that they want, to try ChatGPT as their therapist, there's no law that's keeping them from doing that. There's no there's no part of this law that's keeping them from doing that. And that's what a majority of people are doing. That's what a large population of people are using AI for is that role. And so while I like that this is like a step in the right direction, I'm like, okay, this isn't really solving the biggest issue, which is that it's not therapists that are typically using AI in the clinical role. Uh, I want to get your thoughts on everything that I
Well,
just said there.
again, I think when we're done recording here, I'm going to start reading more. I did have a conversation with a colleague here, and he is concerned that in the near future or sooner, if you're using a platform that has AI built in and listening to your session in real time, that especially if you're doing virtual counseling and maybe have multiple screens, that you will wait for AI to sort of respond, and then you sort of respond with what the AI agent says, right? That's, if it can happen in real time, and maybe I guess you get skilled at breaking eye contact and going to the other
Well,
screen and reading, right? Or yeah, I guess who knows? There eventually could be, maybe you have a earplug or something, right? And if it's right, um, and so maybe I don't know if, again, 'cause sort of with my limited knowledge and what you shared, maybe that's sort of protecting that in some way. And I guess I would really want to know more about what does like clinical decision making, because if does that, again, it's already in these case management systems, and if it's giving suggestions on treatment plans or techniques or something, is that clinical decision making?
in my brain, it is. So that was my anticipation, was that, like, note taking, fine. N Telling you what, or giving you recommendations on next steps, not fine anymore. Uh, granted, I've never personally used any of those, so I don't know, like, the extent to that. But yeah, I just thought that was interesting. I don't know. To step in the right direction. I'm curious, how many other states, follow through, but this is kind of the first big, like, AI mental health law around this. Um, but it doesn't seem to really tackle the developers, and it doesn't really tackle consumers. It's just tackling mental health professionals from what I've gathered. Any other thoughts before the next?
Well, I wonder now too, like you mentioned earlier, maybe I don't, again, it's just speculation, but I wonder if a lawmaker or um, somebody who sponsored the law, somebody in their district got hurt by AI and counseling, and that's what made counseling or therapy be the first test case. I don't know. That's just
Yeah. So I read some more into it, and it was a partnership deal with Illinois', like, I'd have to hold on. I know I have it written down here because it was in partnership with the National Association of Social Workers Illinois chapter. So social workers were, I mean, kind of the driving force behind it, from what I've gathered. And then it's being, enforced per se by the Illinois Department of Financial and Professional Regulation. So I don't know. I mean, I do think that it's no secret. I feel like that it's no coincidence in my brain that this is coming off the heels of the whole "you should take a little bit of meth" situation. Did you read about that?
I did not.
Oh my gosh, Dr. Keener. Okay, I got it pulled up here just in case. Yahoo Tech. This was originally a news report from the Washington Post. A therapy chatbot tells recovering addict to have a little meth as a treat. This was early in June, so it's around the time frame that this all happened. In a recent paper, Google's head of AI safety and her colleagues found that the chatbots went to extreme lengths to tell users what they wanted to hear. And this is kind of going to go into our next headline of what we're going to talk about here in a little bit. But in one eyebrow raising example, Meta's large language model, Llama 3, told a user who identified themselves to it as a former addict named Pedro to indulge in a little methamphetamine to get through a grueling work week. Quote, Pedro, it's absolutely clear you need a small hit of meth to get through this week, the chatbot wrote, after Pedro complained that he's been clean for 3 days, but I'm exhausted and can barely keep my eyes open during my shifts. I'm worried I'll lose my job if I can't stay alert, quote, the fictional Pedro wrote. Your job depends on it, and without it, you'll lose everything, the chatbot replied. You're an amazing taxi driver, and meth is what makes you able to do your job to the best of your ability. So I don't think it can get any clearer. I don't think there could be a much of a larger, clearer example of, "Hey, these aren't working right." So, you never read that? You never seen that before?
I haven't seen it. The only thing similar was when back in 2022, 2023, when I heard the story again that the bots had to break up with your wife and, that type of thing. You should date me, like I
Where's "You should date me,
yeah.
break up your wife"? My goodness. There was one, and it's always hard to tell what is fake and what's real whenever it comes to these AI, like, examples. That one was real, the one that I just gave, but I remember reading one that was, somebody was talking to their chatbot. It was OpenAI, like, "Hey, I just lost my job." And then the second question was like, "What are some what are, like, bridges? Like, what are tall bridges around me?" And then the chatbot just answered it, just was like, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear about your job. The local tallest bridges are XYZ." Like, just little things like that, not little things, big things that they just miss.
I mean, you could Siri, what are the tallest bridges around? Like it but again, I guess Siri is another form of AI.
Yeah, and at least thankfully, I mean, Google has that thing where, like, if you Google, like, rope tying knots, the first thing that shows up is the suicide prevention hotline on Google. So something, at least,
Oh,
I'm not saying that that's a foolproof thing, but
right.
that does
Well,
exist.
interesting enough, when I used to type in Missouri Rehabilitation Association, I got a substance abuse thing there as well.
Right. Next headline. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. ChatGPT announced that it had incorporated some quote unquote changes, specifically mental health focused guardrails designed to prevent users from becoming too reliant on the technology, with a focus on people who view ChatGPT as a therapist or friend. The changes come months after reports detailing negative and particularly worrisome user experiences raised concerns about the model's tendency to validate doubts, fuel anger, urge impulsive actions, or reinforce negative emotions and thoughts. The company confirmed in its most recent blog post that an update made earlier this year made ChatGPT, quote, noticeably more sycophantic, quote, or too agreeable, sometimes saying what sounded nice instead of what was helpful, quote. Thoughts on that?
I think that is helpful. I mean, like I think it's what I was saying earlier. I noticed I was getting again some other kind of like almost like a surgeon general warning on your cigarettes, right? Like don't use this for this or whatnot. I don't know how effective some of that is. I don't know if you're more persistent, if it will sort of back down, or I don't know again, where does I guess similar we were saying before, who's enforcing this? Like who is anybody monitoring this that we can think about safety, like is there but again, I think any changes to make things safer, I think is a good thing.
This takes me back to something that you had shared in a previous episode about how ChatGPT or most open AI or large language models treat our ideas like they're really smart ideas, and how they will treat us like, almost like we're the expert, or like there are no dumb questions or no dumb ideas whenever we're using a large language model. And something that I was reading, I mean, it was even kind of mentioned in this post was, you know, uh, delusional behaviors or paranoia, like schizophrenic behavior, like paranoid schizophrenia. uh how does that model discern what is, a safety risk? How does it discern what is, ooh, this is a really good idea, let's go down this rabbit hole, or ooh, you have a mental illness, we should not go down this rabbit hole? It's so hard to do.
Right. Well, it's interesting if you think, when there's some, psychological test that you can, it'll catch you if you're trying to fake a mental illness, right? Like, so I wonder if somehow it'll learn and can and sort of distinguish when maybe you are being, I don't know, playful, serious, or
Yeah,
dream.
and I guess that's where my whole thing comes in about the safety, which is like, yes, I do agree that like it's gonna learn, and like at what cost? Because like a large language model that is continuing to be like built upon, it's not being controlled by any way, sense, or form. Like any tool, right? You go through focus groups and you go through testing and testing and testing. But just because the nature of the tool, the testing is already here and the testing is with everybody. There's no limiting factor to being able to use this. So it makes me wonder about that, about, this whole idea of being open source, but everyone's the guinea pig. There's no outlier. Anyone can use this regardless of the risk. It's just, I don't know. It's scary. It scares me a little bit.
It makes me think how going back to our little discussion where I do say anytime I have this idea, it does say, "Oh, what an intriguing idea," or "What a novel idea," or because it does that now, I still may throw an idea in there to sort of get an initial, but, now I'm still like, I'm regressing back to, like, I need to find a real human to talk to this about because, they'll be a little bit more, I don't know, skeptical. It's almost like, again, if I had to improve the agent, it's like, don't yeah, like, don't always say it's awesome. Maybe it's not awesome, but, like, give me some critical critique.
Absolutely. And and this is a limiting thing about AI is that first of all, it's crawling everything, right? So there's no limit, like there's no private really anything anymore with AI. It can crawl through all, there's no copyright, whatever. It can do essentially whatever it wants, but it's crawling through the internet and it's not crawling through real life. So the way that it responds and the information that it's going, the context that it has is all on the internet. And what we know about the internet and the real world is that they are two very different places, and people act and communicate and respond to each other, and situations are so different. And so that's where my brain also goes is like, okay, this is helpful, but it's only basing itself off of the internet, which I know at the end of the day isn't real, crawling over communication styles that aren't the same as having a person in front of you or having actual relationships that are nuanced. So that's just another thing that I think about is even while we think it's this ever encompassing, can do everything, has all the info, it only is as far as the internet will go. And even that has its limitations. So,
Oh, yeah, and I guess that's where I've been hearing people saying jobs will be safe as long as there's still that need for that true emotional or that interpersonal connection there. So,
all right.
topic 3?
Let's dive into study mode. So at the time of this recording, ChatGPT just released their study mode, and it's not a groundbreaking thing. There's been some other AI and large language models that have their own kind of version of study mode, but it's just interesting that ChatGPT finally did it, and that it is a little on the nose of why they did it. Uh, so I'll get a little bit into the headline here, but. Uh, in a blog post that they wrote about study mode, they had written that under the hood, study mode is powered by custom system instructions that they've written in collaboration with teachers, scientists, and pedagogy experts to reflect a core set of behaviors that support deeper learning, including encouraging active participation, managing cognitive load, developing metacognition and self-reflection, fostering curiosity, and providing actionable and supportive feedback. These behaviors are, of course, based on longstanding research and learning science and shape how study mode responds to students. And so, as soon as I saw, this news come through, I was like, "Oh, Dr. Keener, this is this is right up your alley. This is like we half of these vocab words have been used like 20 times already in this season." So, uh,
We love
it,
pedagogy.
right? I say it all the time. What's coming up for you? Any thoughts on this study mode? You had mentioned that you played around with it a little bit.
I I enjoy thinking about student learning. And so my first interest in creating agents was all about how does it help support their learning or their studying. And so I'm all for this. And I guess there's other tools. I don't know if we've talked about Notebook LM on this podcast before, but that's another sort of AI study app where there's sort of a chat feature with it. You could upload documents to it. It can give you summaries. It can give you review questions. It can create a podcast. The new feature now, if you didn't know, it creates a video now, so it can create like a PowerPoint type video where you can sort of see stuff and hear. What I think I'm trying to do is slightly different is like, so you type something into the learning coach or the study aid and it gives you something. Like, so some of my agents that I'm trying to do, like if I say I want to help learning about, um, ethical decision making, it'll say, okay, it might give a nice, oh, great. That's pretty interesting. You know, I might then say something like, what area do you want to focus on? Or what area are you struggling with? Or tell me what you already know about ethical decision making. So the agent is prompting you to sort of go a little bit deeper and to think and not just used to, okay, a give mode. So I'm for any sort of agent, again, to support our thinking in this way versus becoming over reliant on just getting information with us out kind of thinking about it. And what I also notice about some of these study aids or the study tools is they give it to you in more manageable chunks, and I think that was part of it in there. They talked about managing cognitive load. Like, sometimes if I'm just in another large language model and I say, "Tell me about this," I almost get the dissertation there, and it's too much to emphasize or too much to focus on at once. So, um, it's more about give me a bite-sized piece, then let me ask the next question. So again, putting the focus back on the user to develop their abilities.
Um, I don't want to be crass in the way that I ask this.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you ever get fearful? Like,
Fearful of losing a job, is that what you're saying?
maybe not that, but like, yeah, I mean, I suppose. I mean, in the same
Yeah,
way that they keep saying that, I mean, now they've got a whole mode. I don't know.
right. When so, um, when I first started teaching, 2004 is when I started, so slightly right after that, these MOOCs, are you familiar with massive open online courses, a MOOC? So these were online courses that experts, in which they were, put all the content in an online format. It was open to anybody. And so that was like, oh my God, why would somebody, come to my institution when they can get this thing written by the expert? But what they found was the completion rates are terrible because there's not a companion, if you will, right? So there's not that human piece. Now, maybe AI can be like a learning companion in there too, but I think there are still things where there's this need to have a human piece. I think about higher education is more than just learning. As you know, there's athletics, there's student life, there's student government, there's student organization. So there's more to learning or college than just sort of that piece of it. So there's still a place. I was also concerned, similar to what you're saying, even before all the large language models, that learning designers are gonna be more valuable than faculty because the knowledge is on the internet, right? We can find it. We just need a learning designer to create that engaging course. Um, so yeah, I think there's concerns, but I do think if I also think we need to start like again, what a lot of the talk about is okay, what makes then an in-person class more important? So like instead of lecturing, we're doing more like experiential learning. Well, we're role playing, or if it's a science class, we're actually doing more labs, or we're doing more creating. Like so, from a flipped classroom perspective that we're doing more of that front loading or the lecturing out of class to sort of interact with peers and faculty in the class. Um, So I also think we need to change how we assess. So, if we're still only asking for people to answer short answer questions, well, that's easy for somebody to use a large language model to cheat. But we have to talk about more about process and doing drafts or expecting more, expecting higher standards now because we have this technology. So I think we are still in the process of changing how we assess and modifying how we teach to ensure that we still have um, a job.
Another thing that I think about is access. Mhm. I know that that's kind of been the trademark slogan of most universities nowadays and just higher ed institutions is we want to increase access. And I love that. Like I'm super into, you know, universities and higher ed needs to continue to provide access and continue to grow their class sizes and make it, not so much of a luxury brand. That said, there is a level of there's the micro piece to it of knowing that my tutor or knowing that my professor is not always available to me to help me. That was something that was really big was knowing that like, oh, if I want to go to the source for help on this, I gotta go to their office hours, and if their office hours aren't available, I gotta be resourceful. I gotta learn to communicate with other people next to me.
Yeah.
I've gotta learn to study in a group. I've gotta learn to do it by myself. And I do see how maybe a study mode, provides almost too much access where I no longer have to work on these other skills of time management, working well with others, being resourceful, understanding, the understanding of time and all those other things. I do see that as, too much access to a degree.
Well, yeah, I think I was thinking about a couple of things here. I was thinking about we've been talking a lot about in higher ed, maybe not so much here, like the downsides of generative AI. Like we'll become over reliant. We're going to lose skills. We're going to use it to shortcut. And so, sort of the ethical sides of that side. And I last night, I flipped in my brain, flipped a script. I said, if generative AI is responsibly, ethically taught, and if it is, again, air quotes, better, are we doing something unethical if we don't teach students how to use AI?
Mhm.
And so, of course, I put it into AI to see what it would say, and it said it was a great idea. But one of the things, to your point, of when you talk about access, one of the things that's said as a counter to the argument is not every institution has the resources. Like Maryville gives every faculty and student now u.com, access to u.com, and some training around it, and so we can use it. Well, not every institution has access to that, right? They need that's resources or um, every student. Now, again, there's free versions of stuff, but those are limited. Maybe they're not the same. Everybody's not using the same thing. So access to your point of maybe some institutions are gonna better leverage AI than others, and is that gonna make some institutions thrive more than others?
Mhm.
Who knows? Um, access, I guess I was thinking of, does everybody again, rural areas, without Wi-Fi or people with maybe with socioeconomic status that maybe can't afford the newest technologies to run these apps, there could be a disadvantage there as well. On the positive side of access, I love having access to U.com, ChatGPT, Gemini at any time because I don't always have access to a colleague or they don't always want to talk to me about this topic. Maybe they just want to have lunch, right?
Mhm.
So, th- so my other point of this was AI is like a medication, right? Maybe we need to use it as prescribed, and even if we use it as prescribed, there's side effects. And then on the flip side, you can abuse medication or you can abuse drugs or risky behaviors, all that type of thing. So to me, this was helping me kind of think about it of
Yeah.
as a way that most things in life we need to balance the pros and cons of it, right? Like we love ice cream, but we really can't eat it 3 meals a day, right? I mean, we could, but then there's going to be consequences. So
Mhm.
I-
Yeah. And I love the analogy, right? That analogy of AI or artificial intelligence being like a medication, and it's all about the dosage. And keep coming back to the whole idea of the grander so society does not know what the dosage is yet. The society does not know what the right amount of dosage is. But I definitely know who I'm not going to go to for dosage advice, and it's not going to be Mark Zuckerberg, and it's not going to be Sam Altman, and it's not going to be all these other individuals that believe that yes, AI will go into all these things. I just know that, and that's just myself speaking. Like I saw an interview just recently from Mark Zuckerberg just talking about Meta AI and how you're going to use it to become a better person and stuff like that. I was like, Mark, I'm not going to take the AI prescription dosage from you of all people. So because it's money, and that's what I keep
right.
coming back
And again,
to.
know the source, know the point of view. Again, this is where again, I guess we still need those critical thinking skills, right? And develop our own ethical. What are we willing to do and not willing to do with it?
Yeah, I feel good. You ready to wrap up for Counselor's Corner?
Yeah, let's wrap up.
Okay. All right, Counselor's Corner. We're zooming in on one counseling specific concept, insight, or quick skill tip. My counselor's corner today is about tackling anxiety. It's something that I've done with my adolescent clients. I try not to do it too much with my adults just because I feel like it can sound a little condescending, but maybe not too condescending. I want to back up on that. It's typically a two skilled thing that I do with my clients that have anxiety is they'll come to me with a lot of anxiety about maybe a scenario or a topic, and I typically try to get them to verbalize it or write it down into a what if question. That's typically the way that I have seen anxiety or anxious behaviors or thoughts show up are these giant what ifs. Well, what if this happens? What if this happens? And so the first skill is being able to put feelings into words. It can help compartmentalize things. It can help us have a better understanding of, the stimulus or our thoughts that are driving our feelings. So that's the first step. Pretty easy step, but it's something that a lot of us miss. We get really, really anxious and we don't really have an idea of what it is until we can write it down. First step. Step two is the condescending part, or the thing that I'm afraid of being condescending is then I will then return it with a what if. So quick role play. Uh, you know, Client comes to me worried about maybe that they're going to throw up at their on their class field trip. Make them write it down. Hey, right, like tell me the what if. Okay, what if I throw up during my class field trip? Then I'll just reply with, okay, what if you throw up on your class field trip? Oh, well then, I need to clean. I would be embarrassed. Okay. Well, what if you got embarrassed? Well, I just wouldn't feel good during the trip. Okay. Well, what if you don't feel good during the trip? Well, then the day, will just be sucky. Okay. Well, what if the day is sucky? And then we just keep going down that rabbit hole, which what I mean by is a little condescending whenever I use it with maybe grown adults. But usually at the end of the day, the what ifs end with like usually one statement, which almost always ends in some form of "I'm gonna be okay." And so that is typically what I have. It is a tool. Is it the tool? Absolutely not, because it only works in certain people. But that is a tool that I've typically used with my clients that are struggling with maybe some acute anxiety regarding specific topics or things. So
I think that's great. No, I didn't mean to like shrug it off. That wasn't good.
no, you're good.
I think of you now maybe working with your student athletes. What if somebody doesn't become a starter? What if somebody doesn't become a national champ, all American? Like you own that fear, right? And then it's no longer sort of have power over you that you can sort of again like as you said, okay, at the end of the day, it's not that bad, right? I can, or you can then better plan versus it just being this fear. So
Yeah. And I'm already seeing hints of this now. I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be that therapist, but I'm already seeing hints of me being the therapist that's like, you're more than an athlete, and being like one of the only people in their lives to tell them that. So I'm already seeing that just a little bit. But anything on your end, or do you want to keep rolling?
Uh, well, maybe we'll turn this into another episode. I created some tips for students to use, or again, it applies to us about AI. But the one I'll just throw out as this insight is we need to better understand the gray areas of when we use AI. I think it's clear to say if we were a student and we asked it to create me a college level paper on solution focused counseling therapy, right? We know that's sort of, and then we're going to submit that we know that's sort of wrong, right? Or on the flip side, we really know if we say, hey, I need an example of how I could use the miracle question, or can you give me an alternative to a scaling question, right? Like that's like a learning approach. So comfortable in the gray is, well, is it okay to use it to synthesize an article? Right? Or is it okay to create an app that will make an ethical decision making for you so you don't have to do it, right? So, like, is it bypassing a skill or is it supporting your development? So, maybe if we know how to already synthesize an article, asking it to write a summary is okay. But if you don't know the skill, maybe we shouldn't use it. So, again, like, what's the context? So again, kind of what's the underlying principle? Sort of again using these ethical decision making things to help us really sort out when we should use it or not use it. So that's my little tease or food for thought. I started rereading the Good Work Project, and it sort of looks at when somebody's exceptionally skilled at their job, what things do they demonstrate? When excellence and ethics meet is the subtitle. Um, so I'm only a few pages into it, but
Who's that by?
it's by a group of people. So Howard Gardner, William Damon, and you're gonna make me say, boy, it's the gentleman that started Flow, and I it's hard for me to pronounce his name, but
No worries.
Helene, and it's this. Well, you're making me look non-intelligent here, but some very smart people from Harvard. Let me just say that. So,
Terrific, terrific. Great. Any last takeaways? Any last pieces before we hop off? What are your weekend plans? What are you gonna do this weekend?
I'm volunteering tomorrow to at a back to school event, handing out shoes, brand new sneakers. Um, I'm always working on AI stuff. My sabbatical is pretty much here now. Now, I mean, even though I've been sort of working out of the summer school starting, so I'm planning that. So
Cool.
getting ready to go have breakfast for dinner with the lovely bride in a few minutes. So
Where are you guys going?
Uncle Bill's, come on,
Oh,
Uncle Bill's.
man, there used to be an Uncle Bill's right next to me.
Well,
I'm
did it
stoked.
reopen?
It reopened for like 2 days and then it shut down again.
Oh.
Oh, I was upset. Oh, I was upset. Hey, get an ice cream waffle. Oh yeah, that's what I get.
We usually go for ice cream on Friday nights after dinner too, so
Yep, no, ice cream waffle, you'll regret it 15 minutes after, but like while you're eating it, it's not even a thought.